I'm a little tired. I'm pretty sure you guys are. This presentation today is actually just going to be two parts. I'm going to talk about the narrative itself, and also just talk about content creation. And if you guys have any questions about getting into that, I'll just share a little bit about my journey, and maybe we can do a little powwow on talking about how we grow as a community. So yeah, thanks for coming. So before we kind of start, I just want to just highlight, some of the familiar moments by showing some slides on on my right. For whatever reason, my mouse just decided not to work. Okay, never mind. It went into presenter mode. My bad. So everybody's familiar with this moment, right? I mean, the moment you look at this, you know about the context of this moment. This was Armada's first tournament in the U.S. It was the first time we ever saw Armada and Mango. This was Genesis 1. And this was the epic role read that Mango got to bring it back to tie the set 2-2 in grand finals. And had he not gotten this rest, we could have seen a completely different storyline to, the Melee narrative. Where what if Armada won this moment? So we know why this moment's important, right? Like, about the storyline here. Here's another moment. This is Armada Hungrybox 2016 Evo, and the storylines going into this. Hungrybox specifically said that he needed this to prove that he was number one in the world. Armada wanted to get the tie on Mango for Evo wins, and there's a lot riding on the line in this match. And then we have the lesser known moments where we have PPU Shroom, where PPU is about to close out the set going into top 8. And you guys know PPU's history. He never really has made top 8. He's been known as the 9th place king. So this moment highlights a breakthrough for PPU where he finally, achieves what he's wanted for years. And so to the ordinary bystander, this is just a normal match. If you're a NorCal player, you're not familiar with his Nationals history, it's like, oh yeah, they play every week. Why is this very important? Well, that's what the context and the narrative bring. It's what captivates our audience to, draw them interested into our game. It's the stories, it's the struggles, it's the passions, all the things that form the context of why this particular match is important. As opposed to why, if they're playing in the corner back there and they're just playing a friendly, that's less important than, the moments I've captured here. And that's very important when you're capturing the narrative. And when also, when you're sharing a story. As people, we really love, the story and the heart of people. It's what draws me to other esports. It's what draws me to sports. That's why we like movies. That's why we like anime. It's because it tells a good, compelling story. And I do believe that Smash, has a lot of them. So a little bit about me. You guys know me as Tafokints. I don't think I need to really emphasize too much. I'm known as the stats guy. And I've been writing, recently on ESPN, Yahoo, and Red Bull. So hopefully, I can share some of my experiences in forming my own portfolio and getting onto those sites. And so maybe some of you guys here are here because you guys want to, start your own thing in content creation. You guys like telling stories, you guys like creating videos, you guys like writing, and hopefully, I can help you in that journey. So pretty much, I'm just going to explain why the narrative is important, what captivates us, and some just general tips if you're a content creator. So we just have a growing audience, and this is kind of a overlap from yesterday. If you guys were there when I talked about stats, is that those 225,000 people, some of them are hardcore Melee people, and some of them, they might just tune in because it's Evo, and some of them, they got drawn into our community because we have very interesting stories, and I feel that our commentators, if you look at D1, Prague, especially, they tell a good story of the context of the match. So, if you guys are ever wondering, like, why you feel captivated when Prog, does Last Dog Legends stuff, or when Wife talks about the game, it's because they know how to sell the narrative. So, in every, movie, there's like a story. So, like, the one thing that I'm always captivated by is the hero's journey, which, who's familiar with that kind of story arc? So the hero's journey is basically, you have a person, let's say they start off as a total noob, they go through some struggles, they grow through adversity, and then at the very end of the movie, they grow into this massive lion. That's an awful pun. But you get to see their story, you get to see their struggles, and then you get to see their breakthrough and their success, and we are compelled by that. That's, essentially the story of movies like Lion King and even Star Wars, where you look at Luke Skywalker in Episode 4, or you look at the most recent one in Episode 7, it's a story arc of struggles and breakthroughs. And I think that's, frankly, why, the documentary did such a good job, is that it highlights the story of, 7 to 8 individuals and the overall community, the struggles it highlights, and their breakthroughs and their story. And I believe that every player has one. So, like, when you do commentary and you look at the players, they probably have a similar story arc where they, played with their friends and then entered a tournament. The first tournament, they get viciously murdered. They go 2, they get 4-stocked. And then they want to get better at the game. They get better. They learn tech skill. And then they think they're good. And then they suck in pools again. And then they kind of have this little journey of, successes, struggles, pain, happiness that, it's an interesting story. And I believe that even you guys here, being here today, you guys have an interesting story to bring that I think is important to tell the world, even if you feel like you're not a Mango or an Armada or a Hungry Box. I believe that each one of you guys sitting here has a pretty interesting story that you can tell your friends about how you guys went to SmashCon and the journey that leads up to it. And these little quotes, we identify with them. When Muti King says, "I'm like living proof that and nobody can become number one," that captivates people because it connects with them on an emotional level that, like, hey, you can do it, like, I can do it. And so we're so interested in these people. And one person I really want to highlight is Mango. And I've been trying to think about, like, why people love this guy so much, why he has 3,000 subs. But if you look, he invites you in his journey. When he talks on his stream, he says, like, we're going to do it. We're going to win this. He makes you feel like you're part of the experience. And when he loses, you feel his pain. It's like a sports team is the best analogy. And when you see him succeed and he's so happy, you get to share in those experiences and share in the emotions. So pretty much, what I'm trying to emphasize here is that there are things that go beyond the game that people are interested in. Sure, we're Melee geeks, I'm assuming. Like, we love tech skill. We love, watching Muti King do zero-death combos on Final Destination. We like Mango, doing really hilarious stuff to make his opponents look stupid. But we're also interested in the players themselves. So, that's what we identify with. We not only identify with the characters, the frame data, but we identify with the struggles, the breakthroughs, and the emotions of each of the players because, in each of our lives, in our, our day-to-day, we have our own struggles. And sometimes, we can relate. It's like when we see Muti King break through, like, yeah, like, you know what? Like, Muti King achieved this. Like, I can do it too. So one of the most important things, if you're a commentator, or a storyteller, is that you always have to set the context to what you're talking about. So if you're writing, a piece on Evo, you want to make sure that you differentiate just playing casuals at a park versus, something like this where, what's at stake here? What do these players value? Why is Evo so important more than the ordinary thing? Sure, to us, this is very intuitive, but to a larger audience that has no clue about Evo or Melee, they're not going to know why this particular event is important. And that's what sports do well. You know why the Super Bowl is important. You know why the Olympics are important, right? Because they're competing for their lives to achieve a gold medal, as opposed to, if a swimmer, Michael Phelps just practices in his backyard, that's not as important as the high stakes, high pressure situation where he's playing against the best in the world and swimming against them. And for him to get 4 straight gold medals, that's something that's really cool and like really important. So it's really important to set the stage because there's a big difference between what's shown on the left and what's on the right. And it's important to communicate that. The NBA Finals, if you look subconsciously, you're getting fed the narrative all the time on ESPN. If you watch ESPN, you probably couldn't hear them shut up about LeBron James and Stephen Curry, but they're disseminating information on like bringing these players into superhero mythical like figures so that when they compete, you're like, oh my gosh, these are like clearly the 2 best players in the NBA right now, and they're fighting and duking it out. And once again, we know about Armada and Mango, but the world doesn't. So when they play against each other, you have to make sure that you set the context and let the audience know that this is really important. When we look at this moment here, I really like the Hungrybox story. If we kind of go over this, Hungrybox, we bring back this picture from the beginning, but Hungrybox went through his own hero's journey here, and I want to just elaborate this. That if you want to, like, if we're just trying to create a content piece on Hungrybox, I can literally just tell you here, like, this is the culmination of all the effort of a decade of work where he was a casual player, and then he rose up quickly with Jigglypuff. Everybody thought that he couldn't ever be, beyond second place. Mango and Armada thought, like, hey, if I have to play Hungrybox in Grand Finals, like, this is a free win for me. That was the story of 2014 and 2015. But now, like, Hungrybox is like, I'm sick of getting second. I'm sick of losing. I'm sick of Fox. And I want to try to break through here. And we saw last year, he had some failures. He lost to Professor Pro. He lost to Lucky. He had close calls with S-Side. He lost CEO in his hometown. And so he was like, I don't even know if I can do this, but I want to try to figure out a solution. And if you look at his year's journey where he picks up a coach, Captain Crunch, he finally breaks through. That moment where he finally, kills Armada on that last stock is a culmination of years of hard work that finally has been paying off for him. And so we know that's Hungrybox's hero's journey, right? Where he goes into the abyss. He's contemplating whether or not he should even play the game anymore. He's contemplating whether or not Jigglypuff can do it, and he rises out of the ashes and then finally achieves victory. So he goes from this. If you guys are familiar pre-documentary, there are many sad moments of Hungrybox. Like in Apex, I think this is 2012 or 2013, where he loses a really close set to Hungrybox, where he just has so much emotion and so much disappointment. To now, we understand like how much he had to work to achieve, what's on the right, the taste of victory on the biggest stage. And I'm sure, I want to emphasize this. Everybody has a story. Like, so that's purely coincidental. But, like, even beyond Hungrybox and Mango, I know Hungrybox is probably the easiest story to write about. But I believe you can honestly write a story about each person here. We're like, well, how did they end up at Big House 5? Like, what compelled them to smash? And you can probably even do an interview with each one of them, and it would be pretty interesting. So I just want to talk about content creation. I'm not sure how many of you guys are in that path to smash. It's something that, I've always wanted to do, and now I've realized that we have a market for it. I think it is, a semi-viable market. I probably wouldn't leave, my current work at NASA to go esports content the whole time, but there is a market out there. There are people that, want to see more. So my quick tips, if you're interested in content creation, be consistent. One of the biggest pet peeves I have is that people will write like 2 pieces in a month, and then they will stop completely and wonder why they don't have an audience when they start again 6 months later. One of the biggest things I did to build my brand was on Melee Omni. Shouts to the guy wearing the Melee Omni shirt up in front. I made sure to have a content piece every weekday for a year. And if you think about that, that's 250 pieces in a year that I wrote in 2014. And I wanted to do that so that I can establish some consistent branding. If you look at SSPM tutorials, shout out to the guy you already know in the back corner. They're pretty consistent to the point where Kira is SSPM tutorials, or that GR Smash is top 10 videos, and that they're consistent on their content, and that's important to do if you want to build an audience. I'd also say just create. There's a lot of people that come up to me and say, is X a good idea? Is Y a good idea? Or should I do this or should I do that? Well, like, honestly, I'm just going to... Usually when people ask me, should I do blank, I just say yes. Just do it. Like, you can see if it works, and maybe you write like 6 to 10 pieces in a certain style of what you want to create, and then see from there if that works, and then you get the feedback. But a lot of people, they go like, is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? And then they stop at the idea phase, and they get into something called like idea paralysis, where they never get to do anything, and as a result, like, spend more time thinking of whether or not it's a good idea as opposed to actually creating content, which is probably the biggest pet peeve I have with new content creators. Just, if you have an idea, just see if it works. If it doesn't, then ask people why, and continue to do things is the best thing I can say. You know, my early days, like, a lot of people say, like, I'm not good. You know, Papa Paint, you know, from Last Stock Legends, who does those montages, he didn't start off to be like a really good, you know, video editor. And frankly, I'm not a very good writer. Admittedly, like, stylistically, grammatically, like, I'm not good. Like, that was always my weak spot. And I actually did engineering because I thought that I never had to write again. But lo and behold, like, I didn't know that in engineering you had to actually still write. So, you know, if you're in your early days and you feel like your content's not good enough, or like you don't have the skills, use your early days where you have a smaller audience to iterate. Because when you're working with an audience where maybe 10 or maybe a couple hundred people see it, you can make mistakes. You can pivot. You can, you know, get feedback, and it doesn't have to be perfect. And that's one thing I have to emphasize. You don't have to be the perfect guy to really create content. You're gonna learn as you go and get better. And so, yeah, even be consistent when no one's looking. I think a lot of people think that if they write 5 pieces, they're going to get an audience of like 10 to 100,000. It just doesn't really work that way. You look at, unless like you have like you're a fluky YouTuber that had like one viral video, like most people build their brands from consistent content and just growing and working and grinding to build a bigger audience, getting the subs, getting the followers. And then also carve a niche for yourself. I've listed a few names here, and instantly if I said their name and you're somewhat familiar with the Smash community, like, you know what their niche is. GR Smash, top 10 videos. Omni, clickbaity. I'm just kidding. A little bit clickbaity, you know, he does like the vlogs, you know, hugs. You know, he has a stream where he talks, he does spreadsheets, you know, he likes to have a loungy feel. But pretty much what I'm saying is that every player that's creating content, they have, you know, an association to them where you know, aha, like this person does blank. SSBM tutorial videos. Shout out Sakura. And so, and then we're gonna go into questions, but like if you want to, you know, get into writing, I guess the best advice I can give you is have a list of go-to content. And what I mean by that is, you know, if one day, like, you know, an ESPN or a larger site says like, hey, like, I heard you're a pretty good writer. Do you have any pieces that you can show me? You need to be able to have that on the fly with web links or an online portfolio where you say like, hey, these are some of my best articles. I can do analytical articles. I can do storytelling. I can do player profiles, so that, you know, if you want to reach out to these big companies, you say like, hey, like, here's some of the articles to show what my work is, whether it's video creation, you know, editing, commentary even. You always want to have a go-to piece so that you can convince the person why you're right for the job. I'd also say create an esports resume, which sounds kind of tacky, but once again, like, you're trying to sell yourself to say like, I am the best at what I do, or maybe you're not the best, but you create good work. And I'd say learn to sell yourself and network. I would say each of my opportunities I have with the larger companies, ESPN, Yahoo, and Red Bull, were the consequence of me networking with esports people. So ESPN, I, you know, connected with a guy named Slasher at an MLG Anaheim, which was a larger event. I was able to talk to him. My Yahoo opportunity came from talking to a League of Legends personality, Travis Gafford, at an event where we kind of connected. He was like, oh, like, Tafo, you're like the Smash Writer guy. And we ended up having a couple of good conversations. And through those conversations, he was like, okay, like, Yahoo's going to create esports. Like, who can write Smash? It was like, oh, I had lunch with Tafo that one time, and he does great work, and I like him, so let's bring him on board. So, if you go to these larger events and you want opportunities, I would highly recommend that you connect with people. And at esports events, don't just congregate at Smash events, but with the Smashers, but look to see who's in the industry that you can connect with. So if you go to a DreamHack or an MLG, there are a lot of industry people there that you can talk to build your content. Even if you're a YouTuber or a Twitch person, it's also really important because me connecting with Hafu from Hearthstone or connecting with people, I get advice from them. They encourage me. I can encourage them and tell them what's going on in Smash. And sometimes, with people who are roughly my content size, I say, like, can you share my content? I'll share yours. Or they might rate my Twitch stream and I'll rate their Twitch stream, and we only grow from there. So those are just some general tips. And that's pretty much, this was a little bit of a more informal one. So I was hoping that, there were a bunch of content creators here. And I'm going to open it up to kind of questions about content.
Anyone has a question, you can raise your hand. I'll bring you the mic. If you just stand up so we can all see you.
Hey, Tafo. I'm a big fan. I love the Commentators Curse and Tafo Talks. They're all great resources for Smashers and people who want to know anything about the community. So anyways, on to my question. I'm a digital media and broadcast production student in Pennsylvania. So I already kind of have a small portfolio of work. I do a sports radio show with my friends, and I'm also the sports anchor for the on-campus TV station. But the thing I'm worried about is that when I write my stories, I feel like they all sound the same, and I feel like if I start writing something more like to the general public, it will be not so different from anything the next guy is writing. So I was wondering if you had any tips for differentiating your content, like from Joe Schmo or whoever.
Okay. That's a pretty good question, and that's something, I worry about too sometimes because the question was, like, how do I differentiate myself from different content that exists? I think the best example I can give is that there's a conundrum on Faker from League of Legends where people are worried, is there too much Faker content? And the way, like I say it is that, even though you might have some similarities, you're probably going to add a different take on it, and in addition, like, you have a different audience than other people, so I wouldn't say don't worry about it too much in terms of differentiating yourself, because there's different Hungrybox articles out there that other people in mainstream esports are writing, and sometimes I go worried and I say, like, oh, should I not write Hungrybox articles? But I realize that I'm gonna have my little spin, my little Tafo kind of analysis to it, so I would say don't worry about it too much. Write it out, and I think you bring a new, unique perspective. So when you ask yourself, like, about the story, like, what are some of the key points that you want to flesh out, and then work from there as a base.
Is there another question? We have time for one more. Yeah, right up here. Actually, would you walk to me just so I don't get feedback on the speakers?
Hey, Tafo, do you think that there are any unfulfilled niches in, like, content creation? Like, we have guides for playing and, like, articles about the players that try and detail the storylines, but do you think there's anything that, like, is obviously standing out to you that we don't have?
I think there's a lot still, like, I mean, when I look at our production values, there's a lot to be desired. So, for example, when we have commercial breaks, why can't we fill those up with, like, 30-second videos of, like, what a shield drop is, or what a Wavedash is, or, like, a did you know slides, or, SSPM tutorials provides a certain niche, but, like, there could be, a deeper analysis on decision making that, like, why is Hungrybox winning against Mango? Like, maybe, like, slow-mowing video clips. Like, pretty much there's a wide open field here, and I feel that there are so many ideas that I can't even think of that would probably be good, but those are just some light examples. I'd say, like, even player narratives, we only cover, like, if you look at mainstream esports, we really cover the same 5 to 6 people. We don't cover, like, the Mike Hayes', and I think they all have interesting stories. So, like, even within, like, covering, players, like, I don't think we do a lot in each of the buckets that already exist.
I think that's all the time we have for. Thank you so much. And do you want to meet people off to the side if anyone has additional questions?
Sure thing. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Everyone, hang tight where you are, and just about